Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
The myths of retirement planning. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. There's a couple of levels of questions that you can ask and resources that you can use to get your answers that you might have to money, financial planning, you name it. So go to the website and you can always send a question in to the question and answer link at the top of the page. That's always available for you 24 hours a day. Second, if it involves more than a question through email, you are always welcome to set up a time online. And we just set this up to where you can reserve a 30-minute block. I only have so many of those left on a week-to-week basis. You can find one that will fit your schedule. And that way we can talk over the phone or Zoom. And if I can help you that way, we'll do that as well. I want to make these resources available to you because one of the things that we're finding is that there's just not very many resources to go to. If you've got questions, we want to be that resource for you. And it's something that I have committed to. And actually I enjoy it because I enjoy solving problems. That's why I got into the business back in 1992. Is to help people solve financial problems. And God has blessed me with this radio show and this forum to do this. And I want to make sure that you know the resources that are available to you. And there's no cost to that, no obligation. Anything financially related that you need help with, you can go up to that next level as well. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. One of the things that is most important to me about doing the program is to challenge people's beliefs about money. Why do you believe the way that you do? Have you ever stopped and thought about you're going through the process of preparing for retirement, maybe 20, 25, 30, 15, whatever years away, but you're going through the right steps. Have you ever sat back and thought to yourself, why am I going through these steps? Are these the best steps? Are these the best investments? Is this the best type of plan to be using? And what I found is that most people, they get the information from maybe an advisor, maybe a money magazine, maybe an HR department, maybe someone who's with a fund company who's helping a particular company with their information with each employee with the 401k plan. You're told you should do A, B, and C, and you should get D. And it's usually just very, very simple. So people look at it and they go, okay, well, I can do A, B, and C, and then D is what I want. So we'll get started, and I'll start putting money back, and I'll use the 401k, and I'll do this type of investments, and they'll have this kind of a strategy built in, and it'll all work out. Never did you go through the process of contrasting your options and looking at this option versus this option, looking at this particular situation versus another, and really coming up with what you feel is a good, solid strategy. And quite frankly, and I get it, most of the time we are just trying to get that 401k plan money out of the way, get that plan set up, and get it done, versus really taking the time to look at these things and see what makes the most sense. I call this belief renting, and it's the process that people go through where they're told this is what you do, this is what you make sense, and if someone asks you why you're doing what you're doing, you do whatever the person you say whatever and explain based on what was explained to you without really knowing why. And without why, you can't own your beliefs. I hope that makes sense. And I think from a stewardship standpoint, it's extremely important to own your beliefs, and not saying they could be effective or maybe not effective. Only time will tell. But you're not using somebody else's belief system as your own, because there's always agenda typically built into that. So what I wanted to do today was go through what I call the myths of retirement planning. And there are 5 different myths that we can address today and we're going to talk about. And incidentally, if you miss any part of this program, if you're in the car for just a few minutes out of the car, or you're listening at your online and you got interrupted, always you can go and pull up the podcast and listen to the program in its entirety. So that's at the website. That is at any one of the podcasting platforms that you use, Spotify, Apple, any of those, and you can pull that up and listen to it. And if you wouldn't mind, give us a comment or a review, hopefully a good one, and we would definitely appreciate that. But that is also make sure that if we want to make sure this information is always available to you and through the podcast, and we podcast every program. And we send, and if you're part of the e-letter list that we send out through email, you'll get a summary of every podcast every Friday after Tony, Joe, and I do the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money, and that is on there as well. So that is always available to you. Let's start with myth number 1, and this is going to probably rub some people the wrong way. Some people in the industry will say that this is blasphemy. I say that jokingly. Some pop culture finance circles. The first myth is your 401k plan is not always the best place for retirement savings. Now, it's a popular notion that the 401k plan is the best place to save money for retirement. It's convenient. It's set up just specifically for that. But I pose the question today, what if 401k plans are not the best place for investing? And this is something, once again, that you were probably told at a young age, that when you get your first job, your first meaningful income after school, or whether graduation from high school or graduation from college, that you want to start putting money back. You want to start saving money into a 401k plan. Well, let's break this down to the effectiveness of the 401k plan. We'll start with the employer match. The employer match, of course, is when you put money in, and because you put a certain amount of money in, they match that either dollar for dollar, 50 cents on the dollar, 25 cents on the dollar. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's free money. So if you have to put in up to 4% of your income to get free money, that should be the minimum that you put in to get free money. Free money's free money. You don't want to leave any of that on the table. What you do beyond those contributions to once you've satisfied what you have to put in to get the free money is a whole nother story. But the money that's given to you as a employer match, you want to make sure that you get your fair share of that. Now, the inability to diversify is the second consideration that I would have you look at when it comes to the effectiveness of a 401k plan. We talked about the employer match, now the inability to diversify. Diversification is simply the process of spreading out your money over a number of investments so that when one investment goes up, one investment goes down, it kind of balances everything out. And what you're wanting to accomplish here is a portfolio that doesn't all go the same, that every dollar doesn't go the same way. So if the market goes down 50%, your portfolio goes down 50%. A well-diversified portfolio might mean that you go down just a little bit, or you don't. Maybe you don't go down at all. Depends on what you have available to you to diversify. But the inability to diversify comes in when you could have. And I had a guy come into my office. This was a long time ago, but it serves for a very good example. He came in and we said, I want you to take a look at my 401k plan. So we looked at it and he said, as you can tell, I'm very well diversified. And so I looked at his 401k plan and he had it spread out over so many different funds. The problem is, which I explained to him, was that those 10, 11, 12 different investments you have the money spread out over, if the market goes down, chances are all 12 of those will go down with the market and go down substantially with the market. So there's really no diversification there to benefit you. Just because you have it spread out over 10 to 12 investments does not mean it's effectively diversified. It's true diversification. It's just spread out over a bunch of different funds, which does not really give you a benefit at all, very much of a benefit at all in a down market. Maybe it gives you a benefit on the up markets, but it's the down markets we're always concerned about that we don't have covered, that cause the most problems and risk and loss for investments. So always want to make sure that we have that covered. What we're trying to accomplish is to practice true diversification. And that is where you have a balanced approach. You don't have everything in one type of investment, like a stock is a type of investment or a bond is a type of investment. You have it spread out effectively over different types of investments and make sure that you're spreading out risk. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. Stick around. We're up against a break. I'll be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org. At PastorChuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at PastorChuck.org, a full library of great teachings by Kay Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson with the Point of View Radio Talk Show. I want to invite you to listen to our program on KDKR from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday. We look at various issues from a biblical perspective. Our topics range from politics and economics to the Bible, theology, and apologetics. We also bring authors and informed experts to the program. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. Hope you'll join us every day on Point of View right here on Bible School Radio 91.3.
Hi, my name is Bob Brooks, host of the Prudent Money Radio Show. So let me ask you a question. Do you know your numbers? Now, which numbers are those? They are your retirement numbers. That set of numbers is the single most important planning numbers you can know. Yet the majority of Americans don't even know them. Prudent Money Financial Services, sponsor of the Prudent Money Radio Show, specializes in figuring out those numbers and creating a game plan to make sure you're on the right track. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show weekdays at 3 p.m. on Bible School Radio 91.3. Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Listen, I'm not taking questions today. If you have a question for me, please go to the website. There's a Q&A at the top of the page. That is for what I call level 1 questions, where you just have a question you want to send in your email, and I'll answer it. We'll go back and forth on email. We just added another layer of questions, and that is, hey, Bob, I've got a more extensive situation. I have a bunch of questions regarding retirement, the investing I'm doing. Maybe it's an inheritance, whatever it might be. It needs more than email. Then if that's the case, I have 30-minute blocks. I don't have a lot of them, but I have 30-minute blocks that you can sign up for one of those blocks online. No cost, no obligation. That way I can help you over the phone or over Zoom And of course, we limit that time period to 30 minutes, which is really all you need. And if I can help that way, I want to help. As I said earlier in the program, we're doing this because there's not enough resources, not hardly any resources for the average investor today. I want to make sure that you're covered and that you are taken care of. So we've added that. And you may have to go out a couple of weeks, just depending on what the schedule looks like, but it's there for you to utilize in the event that you need to. We're talking about true diversification, to where the spreading out over different types of investments. And this is one of the bigger problems I see with 401k plans, is that they don't give you the ability to practice true diversification. So here's the litmus test for your 401k plan. If they are not contributing a dime to it, I would seriously consider whether other options, because if you take the free money concept away from the process of investing into a 401k plan, you've taken away the heart of the benefit of a 401k plan. And unfortunately, more and more employers, to save money, or are not doing the employer match. So that's the problem. And then, of course, you get down to the inability to practice true diversification. That's something that you and your financial advisor, only if your advisor thinks out of the box, because that's very important in what I'm talking about here today. You got to stop using a lot of the pop culture finance methodologies without comparing the pros and cons of those versus doing something different. So very, very important. So if you're in a situation where it has a match, you definitely want to invest up to the match. And by the way, as always, I'm not trying to give advice over the air, because your situation is so much different. I don't even know your situation, right? So just keep that in mind. The second myth is that you can save yourself to retirement. What I mean by that is, and I see all of these articles in the money magazines of the world and that type of thing, in the Kiplinger, that talk about, well, if you just save 15% of your income over 30 years, you'll have more than enough money to have a great retirement. My question is, what's a great retirement? What's inflation going to be doing? What is your growth, your estimated growth rate? And what are you doing about risk? Because an article about saving 15% towards retirement and having a great retirement does nothing to answer those questions. Does nothing at all to answer those questions. So to sit back and take the advice of someone writing an article for a financial magazine or a CNBC.com or whatever, and it says, if you just save 15%, you'll be great, you'll be in good shape for retirement, I would take 2 steps back and say, it couldn't be that easy, and it is not that easy. There's 5 steps that you follow, in my opinion, to achieve that, what I like to call financial independence. And financial independence is defined as the age that you'll get to where earning an income is a choice rather than a necessity. Once again, at the ages you get to, financial independence, to where earning an income is a choice versus a have to do so. A have to. Very, very important, and it's something that you get to that point where you may not want to stop working. You may want to keep working for a couple of years, but you know that if things get stressful or things get to a point where you don't like it, you can leave because you're already financially independent. So, and then this is what I find, that when people set these goals, and they're setting it for I want to retire. I just don't know when I want to retire. You shift the conversation to when do you want to be financially independent? What age sounds good to you? You can always change it. I mean, that's the thing, that plans are flexible. The first one, by the way, is to have a plan. Then you got to save money. Of course, that they cover that in the article. It's the only thing. Then you got to invest that money. Then you got to manage that money for risk. Then you have to track your progress. And this is what I love about the system. We've put this system together, and it's something that's available to you as well. What's great about the system is that at any given time, you know if you're on track or not. How would you like to know if you're on track to retirement? Just by going and checking your values. And it's always the guideposts and the map and the journey. And everybody's journey is different. I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and they were just regret over some of the decisions they made. And I said, if you only knew some of the bad decisions I've made when it comes to money. I talk about, how do you think I have so much content? So, I mean, it happens to everybody. Bad choices when it comes to money is just what ends up happening. The third myth is to retire, and this might be my favorite myth. You're going to need $1 million. And these articles, and you'll see them once a week on some website or some magazine, and it talks about the importance of having $1 million. And it doesn't give any specifics. It just says if you have $1 million by the time retirement goal comes up, that's what you're shooting for. My first question is, how old will you be? My second question is, when are you going to retire? My third question is, how much do you need at retirement? And then what are the effects of inflation? This is what just baffles my mind. These are some good writers. I don't know why they're writing these things, but they're not even making a note and pointing out in the article that $1 million is not what $1 million is today. 20 years from now, it's totally different than what it is today. So do I need to shoot for 1.3 million or 1.1 million or 1 million or whatever? And then the final thing is that number, what you need to generate, that plan is so specifically drawn up for yourself. I mean, it's a personal plan. You may or you may not need $1 million. You may only need $500,000. You may only need $300,000. You may have other assets come. I mean, it's so different. The journey is so different from everybody. Don't fall for that one. You need $1 million, because I've seen this really almost depress people when it's a myth. You need whatever your values and goals say you need. That's the cool thing about it. Number 4, the fourth myth, is target funds, which we're probably most familiar with, will get you to your goal. And a target date fund is set up to where if you're going to retire at the age of, let's say, 60, and that turns out to be 2030, the year 2030, then you'll put your money into the 2030 target fund. And theoretically, as that money grows and gets and gains, it gets more conservative every year. And it's supposed to put you at the perfect level of being conservative at the year of retirement. Well, unfortunately, I mean, in theory, it's a great idea. It's a great idea, and I would even argue that it's something you can do yourself. What I have found, and this is my own opinion, is that these target date funds are a whole lot more, to take a lot more risk at and towards retirement than you might be wanting to take. And I've seen, back in 2008 is a great example, when we had the financial crisis, and there was the target date fund of 2007, which should have been taking hardly any risk. That fund lost 9 to 10% at a particular fund company. Should have never lost that kind of money. So I always am suspect of how much risk they're taking. At the end of the day, mutual fund managers, even if they're in a target date fund, are competing against other mutual funds, and that's the problem. Is that it comes down to what kind of performance that you have. So you might be tempted to take more risk, which I think is what they do. So that is 4 of the 5 myths. I'm going to pick up the 5th myth on tomorrow. And we'll actually probably not tomorrow. One day this week we'll continue this. I know I have some guests coming in this week, and we'll talk a little bit more. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. You got a question for me? Please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.